Well, welcome, Joseph. We are really excited to have you here today. I serve a lot of small businesses, a lot of coaches, authors, speakers, and customer service is not always at the top of their list.
Yeah.
They're more worried about the day-to-day running of their company, but it really does make a big difference. So welcome. Really glad to have you. Wanting to know, you have a new book out that sort of covers this. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my latest book is called Stronger Through Adversity, which is really kind of looking at how do you deal with this crazy time that we've just come through? How have customers changed? What do we need to be doing to bring all of the operational excellence that people do worry about every single day alongside of some really humanistic things that ensure that people feel cared about?
Yes, and I think that's the reason I was so interested in talking to you is I've had so many experiences lately, and my clients talk about it as well, where we're connected with big companies, we have problems, and we don't feel cared for at all.
Yeah.
So let's dive into, first of all, seeing a lot of companies with AI.
Yeah, so what really happened, I think, in the pandemic is we really relied on technology to allow us to stay connected to our customers. We couldn't do it in the face-to-face. And, technology roadmaps had maybe AI 5 years down the road, really bringing it on full force. People were able to bring it on in 5 or 6 weeks out of necessity. So you're seeing the use of an understanding of big data to anticipate ways to provide service to people. But really the success is dependent upon not only the AI, but having people to warm up all of those suggestions.
Absolutely. I actually ran into a situation with Verizon where I got caught in a big loop. And when I finally got a hold of somebody 3 weeks later, she said, I hear you. I got caught in the same loop when I had a problem with my own company. And she said, I have elevated how frustrating this is. So I think that was really great that somebody actually got caught in their own loop.
Yeah,
And
unfortunately, it wasn't so great that the loop kept on for three weeks, right? I mean, this kind of thing that if you're in a loop, you want ready access to a human being who can kind of pull you out of the loop. Often you don't get looped, and the technology is a service option that really works well. So I think we have to understand that technology for a lot of people is exactly what they want to opt into. But when something goes wrong with the technology, you do need to have a competent, warm, caring human being available to make it work.
yeah, exactly. So here's the other thing I see a lot of during this time period as well, and it's been going on for a while, is that outsourced offshore where you're connected with someone. I just had something happen with my accounting, and I won't say who it is, but it's a big one out there, where they have people from another country. So I had a very complex tax problem, and I'm being serviced by someone from another country who I couldn't understand, and I was so very frustrated. And what is the deal with that as well? Are we seeing a lot of companies diving into that more and more?
Yeah, it's gone both ways. And there were big trends, 5 years ago to offshore all kinds of customer service. Then there were lots of pushbacks from people who said language mitigation is an issue. I don't have an ability to communicate with people. They may be less expensive for you, but they're not better for me as the consumer. And then there has been seemingly a shift back toward that. Virtual assistants are on the rise globally. Use of virtual assistants is part of the customer service equation. But you have to realize right now, customers are not satisfied with customer service. The American customer service index has us at a 17-year low. So between not being able to find people to do the work here, and then efforts to try to support that with global support staff, and then having the kinds of challenges you have, between products not getting to where they need to be and not having people positioned to do it. It's really a mess right now from a customer experience.
Yeah, it really is. And I know a lot of people are very, very frustrated by it. So if you were going to set up a really great customer service system that made people feel supported and valued, what would the ingredients of that be?
Well, it starts with you as the leader. You have to first identify what you want every customer to feel every single time they interact with your brand, whether they interact with you through your people or your technologies. So you have to really define that. What is our desired outcome of every interaction emotionally for the person you're serving. Once you've defined that, then you have to decide where are the moments we can have the greatest impact on delivering that. And really, you shouldn't try to handle every single touch point because most of us can't ensure that every single touch point is nailed. But there are certain points that are higher value than others. We know what that is from behavioral economics. It's the arrival moments, it's the transition moments, it's the peak moments, the pain moments, and the departure moments. And if you understand those, look at the journey of your customers as they arrive, either on your website or via phone call or in a face-to-face environment. Just understand how to own that. So the moment they get there, they feel they belong, they are welcomed, there's excitement about their arrival. Make sure you understand where they transition during the journey and where it is that you can help them not feel like they're going to get lost in a gap between sales and service or whatever it might be. And then make sure you own the ending. Don't just let people go and say, well, thanks for your business. Got your money. See you later. It really is an opportunity to invite them into a relationship with you, to celebrate and appreciate the moments that they took with you. So I think if you just focus on those things, know what you want people to feel, hit the key moments in their journey, you'll be very successful and very sustainable in customer experience you deliver. Sometimes it'll be through self-service. Sometimes it'll be through human contact.
So I think one of the things that happens with authors and small business people is that they go into this. We find a lot with our authors, and they really don't understand their customer. Would you agree that you have to have a thorough understanding, because that sort of is a prelude to the outcomes that those type of people are looking for?
Absolutely. So, as an author, I think sometimes when I'm writing, I don't understand my customer, right? So I have to always kind of visualize who my customer is. And in my world, it's two people. It's a small business owner. Normally, I think of a person who's running a dry cleaner in Poughkeepsie. And then I'm also thinking of someone who's in the customer experience business for an organization trying to drive that business. So first, I have to understand that. Now, then it relates to how do I get to that reader, or if I am trying to get to an audience that might want me to speak about my book, what does that audience person need? And so it really is a deep understanding of the drivers for those people. What's going to make their life better? Why would they want to interact with me? What can I do to contribute to life and ease of them as they're doing their job? All of those things are critical, and it takes me stepping out of my own shoes where I want to sell something to get into their shoes to understand what they're needing and how do they need me to deliver it to make their life easier and better.
Absolutely. So, from an author, we talk about this a lot with the author platform building. What was your process for really understanding? Like, what did you dive into to understand that customer to make all of this work?
Well, I'm so off the grid on some of these things. I mean, I've been around for so long, and I got incredibly in some of my early books. I knew a book that I wrote. My first book was about the Pike Place Fish Market. There was a prior book written that was incredibly successful. Our job is to try to follow that parade, right? Where did that book succeed? Who really got value out of it? And how was it that we could a sequel that wasn't just a knockoff, but added some unique insights beyond what was available. And so for me, it was really studying the success of that prior book and who it resonated with. And then from that, we did a lot of surveying. We looked at our analytics on where the book sold, and we positioned our next book about Starbucks with a similar audience. And then suddenly we found that it was appealing to audiences beyond what we'd envisioned. And now we started to think, why was that? What was it going on with that audience, and how could we tap into that for our next book? So it was constantly trying to understand who was gathering around whatever we were putting out, so that we could, once we knew that market,
Mhm.
then we could build products in the future that would support them. And we had lots of conversations with book buyers, and we would set focus groups up, and I would volunteer to do book clubs, which was really a big thing for me. Just to have time to say, tell me, what is it you didn't like about the book? What was it that you wished hadn't been in there? What was it that really stuck with you? And then that kind of shaped the way I decided how to create content in the future.
That is amazing information. So you'll probably get a good giggle out of this. I'm assuming you did your focus groups online. Is that a poor assumption?
Well, that's as much as we could, and then we create. Yeah, it was definitely online, but not in like a virtual meetings. It was more like email exchanges with people who purchased the book for some kind of an incentive.
So back when I worked at Shy Day in the late 80s, early 90s, we actually were the people that would approach you in a mall and ask you to come into a back room. Which, so when I hear focus group now and I think about that, I'm like, oh my gosh, somebody would have you arrested if you did that now.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, I remember those days, the market research that was being done in malls, and you would pull people in for some quick little research study. It was
yeah,
wonderful
we
days.
used to
I
have them
love those days.
Yeah, we used to have them into that. Lots of M&Ms, lots of Diet Coke, and movie reels. I think the movie studios did it too, not movie reels, but ad reels. Like, what is your impression of all these? So I'm so glad that it's moved online now because those were fun. But yeah,
But just doing customer intercepts in the mall to try to get applied research was exciting. But yeah, there's not even that much mall traffic anymore, probably.
exactly. I don't know how you'd ever do it, but back then we didn't have the electronic visibility that we have today. So when you really took a deep dive into these books, what was the thing that the people reading them said they got the most out of?
I think whenever I ask them to take the knowledge back to themselves, so every book I write now, there is a striking gold, applying the standards to yourself. You write the content and you say, this is how Starbucks did it, right? And then you say, now in your world, what is it that you're doing? The customer walk. So Starbucks has this concept of the customer walk where they have one barista per shift responsible for going out in the parking lot and walking the path of the customer, looking at what the customer sees, seeing the pastry case from the customer side of the interaction. So you teach that lesson and you tell the story of how Starbucks does it, why they do it. And then you say, how might you take that concept and help everyone on your team become the eyes and ears of the customer? And that question is what has been really super important to my readers, in the sense that, great, fine, and Starbucks does that, but force me to kind of internalize that learning and then come up with a way to translate it into the way I do business.
Yeah, I actually have a funny story about Starbucks. Right after I left Shy Day, I interviewed with the venture capital company. And I remember sitting in the interview and them telling me they were going to put a coffee shop on every corner. And I don't drink coffee. So
Mhm.
I was literally like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
Obviously, I did not get the job either.
Well, suffice it to say that when Starbucks was really in that mode, more people owned private jets than they did espresso machines in the US. So the whole concept of drinking espresso based coffee was just not in our psyche.
Right.
And it really was transformative to create a community place where people could have a conversation over a cup of coffee. And I think that's what it did. It created the third place between work and home for a lot of people in the beverage, as opposed to a bar. The beverage was
Right.
coffee.
Right. I just didn't get it back then. So I, I guess I'm not the visionary I think I
You
am.
probably saved a lot of money over your life not getting it, unless you'd invested in the stock. And then,
I probably did. I probably did.
yeah.
So, what are some big takeaways that if you were working with my clients today, that you would start with the basics that they have to build, being online entrepreneurs? Because I think one of the things that happens out there is people get really caught up in the funnels and they don't understand that a click is not a relationship. So how would you work with those people and suggest that they build those really great relationships that'll lead to those higher ticket items?
Yeah, it's always great to just get people clicking and buying your stuff. That's wonderful. But a click and gone is not really what you probably want. You want lifetime value of a customer. So I think you have to understand some customers need nurturance and they don't move through your funnel really quickly. So what can I do to kind of continue to nurture and groom people who may not initially fall in love with you to the point of pushing the button to buy your product? So I think those campaigns where you're providing quality thought leadership, in the, in the absence of them making a purchase, to keep them engaged is really important. Beyond nurturing that non-buyer, once somebody has clicked, that is a special thing. They have done something that most people don't do. They have already entrusted you with the product. And that's just, should be the starting point. It's always just easier to sell more to somebody who said yes once than it is to ever to anybody who's never said yes. So once somebody has clicked, they're in this special thing, and they're not just a buyer that I can churn and burn on. They're a person that I want to be ready. My products come out every other year from a book perspective. So I need to maintain a relationship with people for 2 years so I don't fall out of memory before the next book drops, right? And so I can't be pitching my book the whole time for 2 years. I need to really start providing thought content to them. Sporadically, I need to reach out to them with events and ideas and share ideas from other people. So I'm a trusted advisor in my area. And I think the more we conceptualize our role as navigating and building relationships, sales follow. The more we try to just push a sale, the more we have to do that all the time. It's like a never-ending saga of what do I do now to get your attention from all the other things you could be paying attention to. So I really do think it is that reconceptualization of I'm in the relationship business and I sell books, as opposed to I'm in the book business, and that kind of is where it ends.
Yeah, no, and I think a lot of authors, when they come into that, we sort of position with our entrepreneurs that book is a nurture tool, a get to know you tool, because most of the time there are, like you, there are many people out there that do what you do, but I'm going to buy from you, or you're consulting or whatever you're selling, because I love the information and something in your personality resonates with who I am and my value system. So
I'll just tell you, this last week I was in Mexico City. Someone read a book of mine somewhere down the road, years ago. They said, you need to bring this guy in. It wasn't as though they did an open source, selection on who they wanted to bring in. They brought in the person who wrote the book that resonated with them. And so I think for me, it's always been just my calling card. My book has always just been a giant, version of my introduction to people. And I don't have to pay for it. They actually bought my own, my own business card, and it's a wonderful thing for me. I love what I get to do from the perspective of an author, because it's this one cycle of working with companies, telling their story, and then having other companies want me to create a story for them. And I can't imagine a better business than what we do every single day.
yeah, I agree. I love what I do as well. So Joseph, if we want to find you and talk to you a little bit more, because our business needs some renovation in that area or some help, how do we find you?
Well, let me make sure I give free resource, right? If you just go to LinkedIn and you look at Joseph Michelli, I do a weekly newsletter that has these thoughts on it. So you don't have to pay me a dime to be able to just get a weekly 5 tips kind of thing with an infographic. So please just Joseph Michelli on LinkedIn, follow me there, or anywhere else. I'm shamelessly always the same, at Joseph Michelli on Twitter, josephmichelli.com. If you can spell my name, you can find me, and I'm sure we can connect up.
Yeah, that's great. And while you're there, before I let you go, and for those of you who are not using the LinkedIn newsletter function, you're really missing out. We have been using it for about 4 months now, and we have 2,300 followers. We didn't even know the impact it was having till we looked at somebody else's and said, wait, they have that and we have this. How do we do that? So
and everyone can do it. There was a time when LinkedIn limited only a certain number of people to doing newsletters. Now, if you know how to do it, anyone can access and start creating a newsletter. I strongly recommend it. Just one last tip on that is, once you've created it, then try to move your newsletter followers on LinkedIn into your own private newsletter, so you have their emails and you can market to them as part of that relationship building thing that we're talking about.
I am so glad you said that, because that's one of the big things I think that authors miss, that when we work on platform building, they don't understand that they don't own their Facebook. They don't own their Twitter. That name, I think we've seen on Twitter, you can say the wrong thing and be, logged out in a minute or cancel. And even with Facebook, the algorithm changes. People have lost huge audiences that it took them years to tender and grow. So you guys, that's really, really important what he just said. You have to transition those people. We do it through our magazine, the Breakthrough Author magazine. So Joseph, thank you so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed
Thank you,
this.
Juliet. It was a pleasure. Much success to all who follow you, and thanks for what you do in our community.